Hello. In this video I'm going to walk you through how CAS behaves in detecting files that are larger than your configured limit. So on the screen we've got the admin UI of a CAS in my lab, just for the purposes of a demo so I can easily trigger the exception. I set the limit of the individual file size to be 10 megabyte. Right underneath that we've got this section here, which by default has got the radio button on block on all these exception types. So these are the different exceptions that can occur with a file download and a file scan, or a file stream rather, from the proxy to the CAS. The one that we're going to be focusing on is the second one from the top, which is the maximum individual file size downloaded, which is what this MIFS stands for. So it is set to block. What this means is that when a CAS detects that the file sent from the proxy to the CAS is bigger than 10 megabyte, it will serve ICAP 500 status code with server error message and a bunch of headers that then the proxy takes, and the proxy serve an exception to the user based on what you have in your policy. Now, as to how the CAS detects the 10 megabyte, that really depends on the method of the requested file. So this video is only going to look at range bytes. I'm going to create other videos for where the content length is no, served by the server, or where we have got no content length and we've got a long stream of bytes. And the third use case is where we have got a transfer encoding chunked, which is used by server where the client requests us to kind of, has to trigger some job on the server that runs, and as that is running, we start sending data to the user in chunks. So let's jump into the policy, a very basic policy. We allow everything, we SSL intercept everything, we decrypt everything and send it on the one interface on this proxy just to see what it looks like on the wire on HTTP level. We send everything to the CAS that is downloaded via proxy, and we disable validation because our server has got a self-signed certificate. And we deal with the CAS exceptions here, but at the moment it is all commented out, right? I did do cache no and bypass cache yes here, just so that we always go to CAS, right, on these byte ranges. We always go and fetch the bytes from the server rather than proxy, trying to serve them from cache. Right. I did run a pcap before, so I'm not going to run a new one, but just very quickly, I'm going to jump onto the client. So here I'm calling this, I'm calling my server that's going to send me that, support byte ranges. And I'm going via this proxy on a stick. So 10.10.10.195 is the management, the LAN, the WAN, everything on port 8080. We do have got SSL interception, so we can send this to the CAS, of course. And I want the first 1024 bytes of a 10 megabyte file that I have created. The file is just a text file that we have created with a loop, where we loop the string large file as many times as it takes to basically create 10 megabyte. And when I run this, as you can see, I've got the first 1024 bytes of that file, of that text file that is filled with large file, large file, large file, large file. Notice that even though the actual file is 10 megabyte in a size, I have only requested 1024 bytes, therefore no exception was triggered on a CAS, therefore the bytes are served. Also notice that because we do trickling at the end, which again is the default thing on a CAS, or rather on a proxy, sorry, none of these bytes were released until the CAS was done. To show you that, I'm gonna go into this pcap that I ran before, and I've got the two streams here. This is the decrypted, so stream 13 is the decrypted stream on the proxy. So red is here client, blue is proxy. On the left hand side, stream 15 is the plain text ICAP between the CAS and the proxy. Red is proxy, blue is CAS. And the bit that I wanted to show here is that if I click here, this is the actual payload, there's the 0 byte, that's the end of the file. Notice that the packet number here, if I hover the mouse, is 309. So at packet 309, the entire file was sent to the CAS, or the 1024 bytes of it. CAS came back with 204, no modification needed, everything is clean, and that was at packet 315 if you look down here. And then so at 315 CAS is done, and this is where the proxy here at packet 317, 2 packets later, send the HTTP headers to the user, followed by RN end of headers, and here is the payload. So the point I'm trying to make here that not a 0 byte was sent to the user until the CAS got the entire file, scanned it, and found nothing wrong with it. Now let's close this down. We can close this packet capture as well. We're going to run a new one. So let's now change slightly. Let's grab bytes that are bigger than 1024. So we trigger the exception. Okay, this here. So everything is same in a curl. We are grabbing now over 10 megabyte of this file. In fact, the entire file is only 1 byte bigger than what we are asking for it. The length of that file is 10485761, and we are asking to send us bytes from 0 to 10485760. So there's only 1 byte left, which is going to be the encoded letter E, right, at the end. So before I do this, let's do a packet capture. So that's the packet capture running, and we request a file. Here we go. We got an exception. Let me first of all close the pcap. Let's go back into looking at that exception. So what happened here? Went through the proxy, the connect is done, gone through the SSL handshake. There is our get, right? We are asking to get these many bytes. That's the range. You could see that there was a small lag there, maybe half of a second, and that's why the proxy got those 10 megs and sent them to CAS, and CAS has, completed the scan. And we got back from a proxy 503, and the proxy has served the ICAP error exception. This is the name of the exception page on the proxy. And indeed, we have matched on the file size. So we went over the 10 limit that is configured on a CAS. So CAS serve an exception to proxy, and proxy by default, if you don't do anything, serves this page. Now this is where you can customize it. I'm not gonna run a pickup on this. I'm just gonna quickly point out here that if we were to do this, and if I uncomment this rule, which says that if the CAS, so because it's respond ICAP, sends the error code in form of a header with a value of max file size exceeded, serve content filter deny page, and just add this string inside it. So if I save this policy and we rerun the same test, we now got content filter deny, because that's what I told proxy. Now let's jump into a packet capture. Let's download what we took, download, and let's open it up. And we need to find our stream. So we are looking at, one of them is going to be this red guy. This is our client and proxy. So one of them is stream 10. So let's follow this. And the other one is this continuation one. No, actually it's not. Oops, I realized that I have filtered this. So if this is 10, let's find it like this. tcp.port equals 1344. And here we go. Let's follow. Right. So, what has happened here? Okay, so the proxy opens the socket with the CAS. The proxy sends the ICAP headers. The proxy then adds the line breaker RN sequence. That tells the CAS that, okay, the HTTP request header follows. Another line space RN sequence, which tells the CAS that, okay, the HTTP response headers, follow. The server came back with this, and the CAS didn't need any payload at all, right? It read this, and based on that, it knew that the content is already bigger than 10 megabytes. So right away, it served the 500 server error. This is the header that the proxy reads. Mac file size exceeded. This is what we use in the policy to read. To then, in that second call I did to serve the content filter deny exception. If we don't have that explicit rule, then the proxy would serve the ICAP error for this exception type. Okay, let's look at what this looks like on the client side, right? So on the client side, again, nothing is served. We got in packet 376, we serve the exception to the user. There is the ICAP error because of the file size exceeded. Here the CAS served this at packet 330, right? So this is about 40 packets later, right? There was other, activity on the network. That's fine. The important bit that, again, proxy served nothing, not a 0 byte was released until proxy got a response from the CAS. This time it was an exception. Just for completeness, if we look, what was my other stream? So we had 10, will probably be, let's check what 11 is. No, I'm trying to find the upstream. Okay, let's do it like this. IP address equals 10.10.10.150, which is our server, and we need the decrypted stream. I need to go up a bit. Right, for example, this guy here. Follow TCP stream. Now this is the stream where the server, the server is blue, okay? So the proxy is red here. The proxy on behalf of the user asked for those bytes, right? The proxy has injected by default the X blue code via header, and it looks like it has injected cache control as well, which the user did did not say send, and the proxy, the server came back to the proxy with this, and these are the actual bytes on the wire, right? So the server did serve it. The proxy didn't even get chance here to send anything of that. Not a 0 byte of this, payload from the server was sent to the CAS, because the CAS right away has determined here, looking at this, that this file is bigger than 10 megabyte. I'm not going to bother to even scan that. I'm going to right away serve you the exception. Now for the next test, so let's close all this down. So this is when the action on a CAS is set to block. So let's close all this down, and we're going to yet again run another packet capture. First of all, we're going to change this to serve. We're not going to rerun the use case on the 1024 bytes, because that's exactly the same like the one like before. We know that that's going to be allowed. We save this. Now it's set to serve, and let's see whether it behaves differently now. We're going to yet again start the packet capture. We're going to go back to our curl, and I will leave that policy enabled, so we are expecting to get content filter denied. Exception, let's run it, and yes, we did get content filter denied, so that has behaved like we wanted. We stop this, download the packet capture, and let's see if it behaves exactly the same way like with the block. So we need to find our corresponding streams again. Okay, this is proxy to server, that's 11. CAS is so 11, this is 10. Client to proxy decrypted is 10. And CAS is gonna be, we need 170. Let's just find this one. TCP port equals, this is our ICAP port, so let's follow this one. So 10 and 11 or 12, those are our streams. Right, what has happened here? Same thing has happened, right? Not a single byte out of these 10 megabytes was served to the CAS. We didn't even get there. We just send the headers, and before we could send any bytes of the payload, the CAS right away went 204 no modification needed. And the difference to the 204 no modification needed on the 1024 bytes is that now we've got an exception here. Max file size exceeded 8. So only this line is different. Okay. If we look at the other streams, which is 10 and 11, again, not a single byte is served to the user. The forbidden was served at packet 302. If we follow this one, so this is the proxy to server stream all the bytes, right? So that all ended at packet 510, right? Which is after, but here we don't care because we know that the exception was served to the user and no bytes were released to the user. So whether you do whether you do block or serve, it doesn't matter. The only difference is that instead of sending 500 server error, the CAS comes back with 204 no modification needed. The detection method on the CAS is exactly the same. Where the difference is and where the importance is that if you do serve, you must catch the exception here. If you don't catch that exception here, that CAS exception, if there is no block on the proxy, if I was to rerun this, the file downloads and it's served. And that concludes the video. Thank you.